hand it off to Annetta Stroud, your moderator.
Hey, thank you, Mike. Greetings, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Indepth Stroud, Associate Director for Content and Curriculum with ACRO, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar presentation, Pearson Qualifications 101, a practical guide to Edexcel and BTEC credentials. Before we get started, I just wanted to reiterate a quick note on logistics. There will be time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. So as Mike mentioned, although we will not be taking content questions verbally during the presentation, you may type your questions as they occur to you at any time in the questions tab in your dashboard. I will hold the questions to the end and then read them at the end of the session to be answered by our panel. So today's webinar, Pearson Qualifications 101, a practical guide to Edexcel and BTEC credentials, will highlight the various BTEC qualifications that Pearson Edexcel offers and how they compare to traditional tertiary study, as well as updates on the EPQ, A and AS levels, and introduction of the new grading scale to be implemented in August 2020. I am pleased to introduce the Pearson BTEC and Pearson Edexcel team, Annabelle Lade, Basar Adagbala, and Wade Tomlinson. Thank you all so much for being here with us. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Basra.
Thank you. I'm not seeing the slides move, apologies. There we go. Right, just as the slides catch up with me, I'm not sure why they're not moving across. Thank you very much. I just wanted to first highlight on top of the international qualifications for BTEC and Edexcel, we wanted to highlight the wider work of Pearson and with universities. So that's beyond publishing textbooks. We provide teaching and learning products to enhance learner outcomes and partner with universities to deliver online degrees and short courses. So you also may be familiar with our AI-powered English language test, PT Academic, which provides fast and accurate test scores to universities and is approved for migration purposes in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. And my name is Basira Agbula, and I am the Global University Contact for Pearson Edexcel Qualifications. And in this role, I engage with universities to enhance the recognition and evaluation of these qualifications for undergraduate entry. Typically, I liaise regularly with university contacts involved in recruitment, admission, enrollment, and credit transfer activities. There we go, thank you. So this, just to take the opportunity just to highlight and reframe where Edexcel is in relation to the exam boards for England, Wales and Northern Ireland. So GCSEs and A-levels are set by the government but regulated at country level, as you can see, and underneath that there are individual exam boards, including ourselves, that offer these qualifications to schools in those countries. All schools are free to choose the exam boards that they want to work with on a subject-by-subject basis. So students may take qualifications across the different boards. We follow strict regulation, which exists to maintain standards and confidence across the qualifications, examinations and assessments in England. And to keep the awarding body experience consistent, we also adhere to Joint Council qualification guidelines. Finally, our international GCSEs and international A-levels were created to offer students outside of the UK a British curriculum experience with more choice and flexibility. And these international options have been benchmarked independently by UK NARIC, which is the ACRO equivalent in the UK. So these students may also take a mix of international GCSEs and international A-levels with different examination boards. Next slide, please. Thank you. And ACRO and UK NARIC did a session, a deep dive on the GCSE and A-level updates to raise standards and which were introduced to raise standards and improve student progression. So I'm going to recap on two major features of that change. So these are the 9:1 GCSE grades and the decoupling of AS from the GCE A-level. Next slide, please. Thank you. So let's take a closer look at the 9:1 grading scale. So as Annetta said, All of these grades for GCSEs are now going to be available to students awarded under the 9-to-1 scale from August this year. And this is following the phasing in from this new scale from September 2015. Because Pearson Edexcel needed to move to 9-to-1 grading in our GCSEs due to our off-qual regulation, we made the decision to apply the new grading to our international GCSEs also to make sure that international students continue to have the same standard alignment to GCSE. Note that Welsh and Northern Irish GCSEs still use the letter grades, as do some international GCSEs from other UK boards. So this means as universities, you need to include 9-to-1 grades in your GCSE and international GCSE criteria to ensure students from all exam boards are evaluated fairly. So let's have a look at the scale. As the name suggests, the new scale has 9 grades, unlike the letter scale, which has 8. So 9 is the new top grade, which sits above the minimum threshold for the existing A star. So this means a smaller number of students will receive the 9 grade compared to those receiving A stars, because it's for a smaller and exceptional group of students. The new grade 7 is comparable to the existing grade A, and the new grade 4 is comparable to the new grade C. On the new scale, there are now 6 pass grades, grades 9 to 4, compared to only 4 pass grades on A star to C on the letter scale. So before the move to 9-to-1 grades, the statistics showed that 2/3 of students were achieving grades A to star to C on the letter scale. But with the new scale, the same proportion of students will be spread across 6 grading levels, and that means there's a broader distribution of student achievement, which allows universities and colleges to assess student ability more effectively. Next slide, please. So looking again at the changes to GCE, AS and A level, again, this change is only for these qualifications under the English regulator Ofqual, so don't apply to Wales and Northern Ireland, where these qualifications are also offered. First off, I just wanted to highlight and remind you that there are no changes to the grading scale as with GCSE, and that's because there are already 6 pass grades, the grades A star to E at A level. What is different here is the relationship between AS and A level. So students now are choosing between doing a 1-year AS or a 2-year linear A level. So this means AS results, if taken, are no longer part of the overall A level, as it's become a 1-year terminal program. Next slide, please. And you can see that the separation of the A level means it's no longer worth, of the AS from the A level means it's no longer worth half of an A level. It's actually dropped to being only worth 40% of the A level, as the UCAS points show on the left-hand side. And our regulator Ofqual in England monitors student enrolments across all of the qualifications that it regulates. And it's reported significant decline across the AS portfolio for all exam boards since the new qualifications launched in 2017. So as admissions officers and registrars, you'll see fewer students reporting AS marks when they apply to you. And instead, you may see more students applying with AS alternatives such as the Level 3 Extended Project Qualification, our BTEC Level 3 International Qualifications, or an International AS. Next slide, please. So one of these qualifications, the EPQ, might be new to you. It's a Level 3 qualification, so it sits at the same level as the AS and A level. And has become increasingly popular in recent years, not just because of the change to A level and that separation from AS, but also because we're seeing a link to qualifications that align to skill-based learning and the emphasis on employability agendas in most countries around the world. So an EPQ teacher will provide a student with guidance on planning and research activities, but the key objective in this qualification is for students to develop independent learning and research skills, and then apply what they've learned in the creation of an original portfolio of work that will be externally assessed. So students will gain confidence in extended writing and project management and benefit from a broader learning experience as they can take the EPQ alongside other national qualifications and international credentials such as the A level, the International A level, and Level 3 BTEC qualifications. So overall, taking the BPQ will help students with their existing study and prepare them really well for higher education or working life. Next slide, please. So you can see here how the EPQ relates to A level. So the equivalence for the grades, and they are the same grades as A level, shows that these students will be achieving a qualification that is half of the A level. The university quote here is quite useful as well because it shows that the EPQ has been around for a few years. We've actually been in, students have been taking this qualification for 10 years. And it shows that it's a trusted and valued qualification for higher education admission. Next slide, please. So just a little snapshot to show you the different ways in which UK universities that are probably most familiar with this qualification value the EPQ for undergraduate admission. And you can see that it varies by university. And the approach will vary from adjusting a grade, adjusting minimum A-level criteria for students that do well, achieving typically A's and B's at EPQ. You can see that for University of Birmingham, Southampton, for example, through to students being able to evidence their research and independent study skills in a way that strengthens their personal statement and interview processes at universities like Oxford and Cambridge. Next slide, please. And the final qualification that we'll spotlight with Pearson Edexcel today will be the International A-Level, which many of you may already be familiar with through other exam boards, such as Cambridge International. And just like the GCE A-Level, students can choose International A-Level according to the learning experience that they might choose to have, depending on the subject. So again, the International A-Level is benchmarked to the GCE A-Level standard. So universities in the UK and internationally accept the two qualifications without any distinction or differentiation. Students like the Pearson Edexcel International A-Level as it has a modular structure across almost all of the subjects and offers multiple examination options in January, June and October. So this means that students can take their assessment when they are best prepared, and it's a more flexible qualification in the GCE A-Level. As it allows them to perform at their best. So this is another one that you may start to see more of in light of the changes to GCE A-Level and AS. Next slide, please, Mike. Okay, so for the academic cycle that we're in currently, you can see the dates where you can expect to see students' provisional results coming to you as universities. Pearson Edexcel qualifications are examined at different points in the year, and those results and certificates are issued at different points of the year depending on the qualification. So that's just for reference, and we have those dates on the website and in the admissions guides that we make available to universities. So they change slightly by year to year, but generally speaking, this is the profile and timeline for our polls. Moving on, please, Mike. Thank you. So sticking with our results, we know that sometimes universities can have some challenges with getting those results and being able to verify them in order for you to confirm and enroll students. So we're making students able to do this in 3 easy steps. So they will start off with an online form, which is available on the website, and that will tell us which universities are expecting to see their results, or it could be admissions third parties such as the NCAA. Once the student has completed that application form, we'll take payment from the student because there are some delivery fees to be paid, and then we will post those results in hard copy to the admissions address at the university by DHL. This year we are exploring, we've been running this service for a couple of years, but we are exploring whether we can deliver those results by email to you from this year in August. So if you could, in the chat panel, indicate whether that would be something that would be acceptable to your institution, please let us know, because we're gathering that intel as we speak. Next slide, please. And this is just an example of what a student will see when they go to apply for the results sending service with us. So I've screenshotted the two options that are available to students. So on the left-hand side, this would apply just to Pearson Edexcel provisional grades. So that's the candidate statement of provisional results. And they will be able to get those results to you by DHL. On the right-hand side, the final certificates which are issued to students, you can also access the BTEC qualifications that way as well. So in both cases, students will initiate the sending of a certified copy of those documents. We encourage you, wherever possible, for you to share this link with students applying to you, particularly if they're coming from the UK curriculum space, because it means that that more students are using this process to get their results to you, and it means that you're able to confirm results and move through the admissions process really quickly. So with that, we've come to the end of the Pearson Edexcel section. As Annette said, I'll be looking forward to answering any questions that pop up at the end of the session. But for now, I'm going to hand over to Annabelle and Wade in our BTEC team to talk about the BTEC qualifications. Thank you.
Next slide, please, Mike. Hi there, everybody. So Wade Tomlinson here. I work with Annabelle on the BTEC suite of qualifications, and today we're going to give you an insight from the very basics of what BTEC is, why it exists, who takes the qualification, and give you some more insight from a product perspective. So hopefully we can give you an idea of the types of qualifications that you may be seeing across your desk if you've never seen them before. Starting with what BTEC actually stands for, and it's quite a common question that we get, so don't feel silly for asking. BTEC stands for the Business Technology Education Council. Back in 1974 they were established and created a suite of qualifications in 1984 to improve the relevance of vocational qualifications at the time. So 40 years ago in England, we were addressing skill gaps and the need for vocational teaching. In 1996, BTEC qualifications were then awarded by Edexcel, and now they have become a brand of qualification and vary in shapes, sizes, all the way through your first ever qualification at level 1 to postgraduate study. The confusion usually happens where a BTEC does vary in size. We do have a BTEC qualification that's equivalent to 3 A levels versus a BTEC qualification that's worth half an A level, for example. Here's some useful information. So we have about 1 million learners taking BTECs each year. We had some research carried out in the UK. Around 1 in 4 universities that go to university do so with a BTEC qualification, and that also includes students that combine their BTEC with an A level. And these are, so aside to A levels where you find more academic subjects, these are more vocationally focused qualifications. It's quite a good time to hand over to Annabelle, that's going to look into our BTEC Level 3 qualifications from a product perspective, and then I want to talk to you about a suite of high national. In fact, I've actually got one more slide. Sorry, Mike, one more, please. Just on the equivalence of the qualifications we're going to talk about today. So we have the BTEC National and International, the High National Certificate and the High National Diploma. These are our university relevant qualifications, some of which are entry into the first year equivalent to the A level at level 3 in the UK. And just quickly, when I mention UK, this is excluding Scotland. Apologies to Scotland. And our High National Certificate and Diploma that are equivalent to levels 4 and 5, which are the first and second year of a university degree in England, Northern Ireland and Wales. So we're going to be speaking about these qualifications today in particular, and they account for about half of those million learners, just a bit less. And with that, I shall pass over to Annabelle and speak to you in a bit.
Yeah, hello everyone. If we can go on to the next slide. I work within the BTEC team in the UK. We look after the level 3, as you saw in the last slide. So what we're really trying to do here is just give you a bit more information and understanding of the BTEC qualification as we will begin to talk about vocational education. What we have in the BTEC suite of qualifications is something that is internationally recognised. It's not only about progression into universities, but it's progressing into universities, but also what are employers looking for from their learners in the new world of developing interpersonal skills and practical thinking. Next slide, please, Mike. So here's just some sound bites, really, just to give you a bit of an idea, a bit of a feel for where we've been getting with BTEC recognition in universities. Historically, it's very much a UK focused and kind of popular qualification in the UK, and we're very passionate about it in the UK. But actually, over the years, internationally, it's been really taken up, and not only are we finding universities internationally are accepting it and looking into it, but we're also finding the governments themselves are asking questions about this and looking to introduce far more structure and far more support in BTEC centres throughout the world. We're very lucky in that sense. It kind of fits a lot of the agendas that people are looking for from vocational education. So just some high level information there about how the A levels and BTEC nationals sit as a kind of a widely recognised qualification. Next slide, please. So a bit more information, a bit text heavy this slide, but it just gives you an idea that what we're talking about is the level 3. So as Wade mentioned, we're looking at the A-level equivalency, and something that you'll be looking at your 12th grade kind of area. And although they're career focused, vocational, as I say, trying to equip learners with knowledge and understanding, we understand that there is a need to get those qualifications in order to progress not only into university but into employment. So it's really about drawing from those subjects and what we're looking for from knowledge, but also the skills and understanding of employability skills. One key area that we're really working hard with is working with the UK national agency NARIC to make sure that our qualifications are recognised internationally. So they've been doing a lot of benchmarking with us this year, as well as really understanding that as BTECs become much more widely recognised, we need that sort of exposure for people like yourselves to understand when students come to you with BTECs what levels they are at and what they really mean. Next slide, please. So here are some of the subjects. As you can see, they are very kind of based on vocational education, and we really hope that kind of it's quite a broad area, but that some of those topics are definitely seeing much more uptake, and we're really keen to sort of promote the content being very future proof. So we're looking at sort of AI, robotics as part of a lot of those subjects that you're looking there. We do have a number of different sizes, but what we're looking at here is where the diploma sits, is in further education qualification. So you're looking at the kind of A-level standard will be the diploma size, but I'll go on to that equivalency in a minute. But that gives you a feel for some of the coverage of subjects we look to do and we look to cover. Can you go on to the next slide, please? Again, just to kind of reiterate that the BTEC qualifications, they've been developed for many years and with a lot of great experts putting a lot of great content into it, but we really are seeing a huge uptake in people coming to us and talking about technical and vocational education across the world, and the fact that work skills, employability skills are very much part of the agenda. So what we're trying to do is develop these qualifications so that they are a progression route into university and a progression route into life as well. So that's just some top level information about that and how that fits into that agenda. Next slide, please. Some of the companies we work with, so I've touched upon it, but what we do at the very early stages of developing BTECs is work with some of the key employers in those subjects and in those industries. What that brings about is quite a nice rounded qualification where we know that we're addressing some of the key points in the industry as part of that educational pathway for the learners. Some of these are a bit UK heavy, but we certainly are working across the world with employers. We more recently had a project in Thailand where the employers out in Thailand were working with us on the content, looking at what we were delivering, understanding what we were trying to do. So not only again are we talking about UK students coming to the US universities, but we're looking at worldwide learners are taking up the BTEC qualifications. Next slide, please. So this is sort of the important part. As I've mentioned, this is where you will see where the levels sit, and I think Wade will probably go into this a bit more when we get onto the next few slides, but really the level 3s I've been discussing, and yes, it sits around the A-level standard, but what you'll see there is there are a number of different sizes and a number of different ways of looking at the BTECs, and often you'll find a combination route where people are doing A-levels with BTECs. I think in the UK that's a huge area, and one of which combines the academic route but also with the vocational subjects that some learners want to take. So some of that data there will be very useful for you all. I won't go into huge amounts of detail, but you can see what will be relevant to you. Next slide, please. So I haven't mentioned this, so this is quite important if you do come across IB in your day-to-day lives. IB and ourselves have been working collaboratively for many years, and this IB career-related program is one that we see a huge potential and huge growth, and I expect learners may come to you with such a qualification. It's really fundamentally bringing the IB program, but bringing in that vocational career-related element. And it's a combination of having your IB and then attaching in your level 3 extended diploma BTEC, which is a fantastic way for that kind of combination program. And it's very much designed at the 16 to 19-year-old level. I think what we're finding is working in partnership with someone like IB has been a really positive move for the BTEC qualification. You'll see some numbers there. So you see up to 400 now schools now offer it. I think actually is increasing quite dramatically as we begin to explore this more and see the benefits of it. Next slide, please, just to go into a bit more detail about this. So this is just what we're looking at and how it's structured. So you'll see some example of the pathways there and how that fits into what you'd be looking at from an IB course. They have to still do the 2 IB academic courses and also complete their career pathway core, but you'll see the kind of combination route and attaching the two together gives quite a rounded qualification and quite one that we see quite a lot of potential in, and hopefully learners and students that come to you yourselves who have this is sort of an opportunity for you to understand why or where that's coming from that point of view. I think the next slide goes back to my colleague Wade. It does indeed.
Hello again. So let's talk about higher nationals. So higher nationals are, the name's actually a registered trademark with Pearson for Northern Ireland, Wales, England, and internationally. And they represent a specific level, so levels 4 and 5, which in England would be equivalent to the first and second year of of an English degree. And if you go to the next slide, please, Mike. And here are some of the defining characteristics that make up a higher national. So they're internationally recognised. We mentioned earlier, you saw a slide where BTEC's present in about 70 countries. Higher nationals specifically are taught and delivered in 65. Most popular would be in the UK, Ireland, and in the Asia Pacific regions, such as Sri Lanka, Malaysia. And we design them to meet that wider context. So we try not to sort of keep them narrowed down to UK relevance. And they're also Ofqual regulated, which may not mean much to an institution in the US, but it's a sort of a government stamp to say that they are registered with a government authority, and they are one of the only versions of HE delivered outside of universities that are Ofqual regulated outside of the UK. We ensure that back a couple, please, Mike. We also ensure that we have that vocational standard of designing our qualifications as with the BTEC Level 3, the national and the international. We design them with employers and ensure that they have a professional body equivalence as well. Professional bodies are the best sector standards that we could meet. So we work with professional bodies in designing and validating our qualifications. I've highlighted here quite strongly that students that take these have already gone through the system of HE, and a majority of which are looking to complete a degree with advanced credit or advanced standing. So we design them with the ability to hopefully study at the standard of level 4 and 5 and progress to a level 6, which would be a final year of a bachelor's in England. And just some other sort of technical areas there, that they are recognised as higher education in the UK, that you can gain funding to study them. The only other higher education are outside of degrees and foundation degrees that you can gain funding for, and they're usually offered by further education colleges. Next slide, please. So, and here's how we embed some of those characteristics. I mentioned about the being clearly the progression side of things to either industry or onto education, but we ensure that the qualification contains strong outcomes. We work with external advisory groups, we run validation panels, we do a lot of desk research, and we do a lot of work with ministries and governments to identify where qualifications are needed and what sort of standards we should stick into those qualifications. In terms of professional bodies, we work with them to map against some of their qualifications themselves, so you can come out with a dual award. Sometimes we work with professional bodies in mapping against their standards to ensure there's that professional stamp of approval. An example that we worked with recently, the Chartered Institute of Architectural Technologists, in gaining a recognised course. So if you do our construction course, this potentially will give you exemptions when you go on to do a CAIT course after you finished your higher national. We look at mapping them towards higher education standards in the UK. So the FHEQ is the framework for higher education qualifications, and they have a set of benchmarks that subjects need to meet to be classed as higher education, pretty much to ensure that students are studying level 4 and 5 content. And we also have the, we call them SEEK descriptors, and this is another body, the South East England Consortium, a body of organisations that set standards for higher education in the UK. We have increasing design features that look at ensuring HNs can be, I'll call them HNs from now on, apologies, that can be localised, so you can take units from other higher nationals and embed them in other higher nationals that are taught. So if you're studying music, you may wish to do a unit in business because that's relevant to the area that you're living. And we also, as I mentioned, we avoid consolidating the qualification to UK methodologies and approaches. So we avoid things like UK law. There are higher nationals that do focus strictly on the UK and English regulation, such as healthcare. We do have a qualification healthcare practice strictly for England, but this is signposted where this happens. Potentially where there's a license to practice, we tend to signpost that and avoid doing so where possible. And we have clearly defined standards, as I've mentioned, and we look at the whole skills domain, so what students can do and how they behave, not just what they know. Next slide, please. It's just a brief slide on explaining the higher national certificate versus the diploma. The HNC is typically taken over 1 year, and a high proportion of students actually take this part-time as they're most likely in a career. So you'd see a lot of students take construction on a HNC or engineering on a HNC. The HND usually taken full-time and is covered over 2 years. So the HND typically can go straight onto a HND for your second year. I've already mentioned the equivalence, HNC to that first year of a university degree and HND to the second year of a university degree. The HNC is kind of like your first year bachelor's in the sense that it gets you up to your core learning and you learn a lot of project management skills, whereas the HND you specialise more, so there are a range of specialist pathways to look at. And we link that directly to occupational outcomes. So there's a lot of research. It's more research intensified and involves a lot of critical thinking. I've just mentioned that HNC involves project management, whereas HND has a lot of research skills. And the core assessment's quite interesting, as we have a threshold of 30% of core units, but then there's a lot of decision making for students to make where they want to specialise and put together their own learning pathway as well. Oh, and assessment as well is quite varied, and we'll come on to that in a second. In fact, we'll come on to that right now. So assessment is a combination of academic and employment skills. We try to keep this varied, and we provide a lot of guidance to our centres when considering assessment. We actually have, there are centres up and down the UK that are working with industry to teach students, whether that be teaching a class or directly being involved in a placement because the specification allows them to. So we're trying to broaden the spec to ensure that a student can have a wide range of assessment, not just an exam, not just a test or a written report, but a varied amount. We try to put them in real life scenarios and problems in the workplace. I just mentioned that they can enter the workplace and be assessed. This is a factor that I'd like to dig more, so I'm sort of plugging the next session already, but all of our assessments are marked internally, but we do have stringent quality assurance processes, which includes external examination, and I'm sure we'll dig deeper into that if you decide to join us for session 2. And these are the types of grades that you'll see, very similar to the BTEC Level 3 qualifications we just mentioned, pass merit distinction. Students with these qualifications can be sort of quite similar to what you would consider a transfer student. So their transcript contains credit. And just a last point on this, that we deliver them with sort of the holistic approach. We try and move away from a tick box exercise. So this unlocks, independent thinking and more of those high order thinking skills, such as problem solving. Next slide, please. I've put example policies for entry, but this isn't totally true. You'll see at the top there, I have snipped one of our universities in England's website on their policy for higher nationals to enter. A lot of universities will assess higher national students individually. They'll look through their transcript to see if they're suitable for the programme. Some provide more stringent entry guidance and say, if you gain this grade, we'll allow you to come in at this year of entry. So this is what you'd see typically on a university website, whereas what we put in the middle there is a website that we host. So our team works with universities all over the world to provide more stringent and guided entry requirements for students on a site called the Pearson Degree Finder. And we list pathways for students pretty much with any university that we work with. We also have universities on there that just recognise our qualifications for entry and will consider students' applications individually, and we list them on a world map. So if a higher national student graduates and they're looking to progress to a university, we list them on our Pearson Degree Finder, as long as we have the evidence to do so. And this is a little snippet of what other universities do. So we have, this is from for our framework for higher education qualifications, which is hosted by the Quality Assurance Agency in the UK. These are licensed qualifications by universities in England that are essentially taking the higher national trademark from Pearson to deliver that exit award. So you may exit at year 2 of your degree, but you'll end up with a higher national diploma, for example, awarded by the University of Coventry. Next slide, please. So here's just a quick summary that students that study higher nationals, where most, you're more than likely going to see the higher national diploma in this instance, but are looking for advanced credit. They don't want to start at year 1. They've already studied university level curricula, so they're looking to move on to a degree of advanced credit. We're looking for detailed progression agreements to help guide these students, but also universities that do recognise this qualification for entry, so we can direct them towards where they would like to complete their degree. And at the moment, we actually have, it's quite a sub-degree qualifications are sort of brought up with transnational education a lot, and we actually see a lot of centres arranging their own franchising agreements to allow a student to study their HND in country and complete their 3rd and potentially a 4th year locally. So in Sri Lanka, a market that's saturated with UK education, would run HND and have a final year validated by a UK university. We provide all our specifications to partners that we work with, so you can see the quality of the education that we're delivering. And some universities actually map our qualifications and provide articulation agreements. And I've already mentioned what the degree finder is, but we're revamping this website to ensure it's fresh with the most up-to-date pathways, and we're looking for more universities to join. And the link to come soon. Next slide, please, Mike. And that's it for higher nationals. That's a basic run through of our BTEC qualifications. So hopefully that was very useful in finding out what the qualification is, all the way to who studies it and how they're developed. Here's some of the places that we're going to be. You'll see APE up there. So the news recently with the spread of COVID-19, unfortunately, we'll have to delay that by a year. But we will hopefully be attending APE in 2021. We have had a successful proposal for NAFSA, and we'll be speaking about Edexcel qualifications in May. And we'll also be, luckily, we've hit the double, and we've been accepted to speak at EAI in Barcelona about evaluating non-standard university credentials such as BTEC qualifications that are gradually being seen across the globe in terms of a progression to HE tool. And of course, if you do have any follow-up questions, we're here for another 20 minutes after the webinar, but we do provide more personalised webinars if of interest, so feel free to get in touch and we can schedule a one-to-one to talk about our qualifications. And if you're ever in London, you're more than welcome to visit us. We're based in Holborn and Charing Cross, so come visit Pearson HQ if you're ever on a trip and would like to discuss qualifications a bit deeper. And that's it from me. I believe we're on questions. I'll hand back to Annetta. Thank you for your time.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much. And thank you, Wade, for turning it back over. And as you guys may have noticed, you do have access currently to the Pearson webinar handout. There are a list of really useful links and also our direct contacts, Pearson, Bosserod, Annabelle, and Wade's contact information. And if we could go to the next slide, please. And we do have just more reference materials as well for you to use as a resource back at your desk. Next slide, please. And again, here is your pretty much your qualification ladder that is going to level out all of the credentials that we've been talking about in comparison with the qualifications framework in the United Kingdom. So that is also a really, really good visual for those of you who are like me. And although I can listen very well, actually having the visual really helps it be more clear. So thank you guys for adding the additional resources as well. Next slide. Fabulous. Okay, great. So before we conclude for the day, we do have some questions, and we'll go ahead and start out with what might be the easier questions first. So first of all, in talking about getting the results, is there any way that a U.S. institution or any institution or individual, is there a way that we can verify the score reports that we receive at our offices?
I guess it's best to split this in two, but Bazarat, you could probably cover it from both ends if you'd like.
So thanks, Wade and Annetta. Thanks for the question. I was expecting it. So the process at the moment is through the website. So it's through that online form. We also have, I think it depends on the scenario. I think if you're double checking a result as part of your normal admissions process, you're just looking for that confirmation from the exam board, encourage those students to get in touch with us, and we can send that copy of the results to you as a university. If you feel that you have something that you don't quite trust, so you think you might be looking at a fraudulent certificate or a result that just doesn't necessarily add up, and it's a Pearson qualification, we need to drop an email address across to all of you in the universities, because we actually have a malpractice team that you can email, and we will need to see some consent from the student, but essentially what that does is allow you as a university to double check something that you don't think is completely kosher. From a kind of admissions perspective. So there's two ways really. I think possibly what the question is also alluding to is a self-service system, which we don't currently have in place at Pearson currently, but it's part of kind of a wider discussion around the verification of our results. But in the meantime, as I said, there's the malpractice process that you can use to check something that you think is fraudulent. We have a dedicated team that will respond, very responsive to that email address. But apart from that, we have the results sending service, which aligns to both the final certificate and, in the case of Edexcel, the provisional candidate transcripts, which we're looking at delivering to you by email.
Thanks, Bezra. Just quickly to add for BTEC, we do encourage those receiving our qualifications to work with the centre that the student has studied with, as we do have a system in place to verify qualifications and student success with the centre. But as just to echo what Bezra said, it's something that we are looking at in terms of the wider picture for third-party access.
Excellent. And so just to follow up and just to be very clear, because especially currently we are seeing a lot more electronic verification resources in the field. So currently right now, does Pearson have an online verification tool?
So we don't currently for qualifications. We do have that for our English language test, so a PT academic. There is a kind of third-party self-service tool, but we don't currently have that for qualifications. But as Wade said, that is something that we are exploring with the various teams in our organisation. And you'll be the first to know.
That's fantastic. That is excellent. And we are all happy to hear that conversation is being had at Pearson. Absolutely. Excellent. Okay, so kind of to move away from verification, is there a resource that lists out the specific higher national credentials?
In terms of credentials, do you mean the
Qualifications?
Could you elaborate quickly? Oh, so the subjects. Sorry, are you looking for the subjects taught?
Yeah, so what is there a specific list of all of the specific qualifications at the higher national level that we can have?
Yes, there definitely is. I actually have a handy PDF that I can send for those requesting it. So drop me a line on the email at the end and I can send you a quick use subject list with the relevant pathways allocated to each subject, along with the specification link. They're all publicly available on qualifications.pearson.com. But my PDF is quite handy, so drop me a line and I'll happily send that over to you.
Wade, that would be absolutely fantastic, and we will just go ahead and post the webinar. Pearson will go ahead and reach out to all of you directly and send you a copy of Wade's cheat sheet, if you will, because that sounds like an awesome resource.
That sounds much better. Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
Excellent, no problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and look to some of these more in-depth questions. So first of all, let's go ahead and look to, so what exactly is the US equivalent of your level 3 extended diploma? And is this required for admission to universities in the United Kingdom?
So it's not required, it's an option. I think, I'm not sure if you have kind of project type qualifications in the US, but in terms of the UK framework that you're familiar with, it would be the GCE AS or the International AS. So it's that 1-year program, grade 12 equivalent qualification. That is where the level 3 extended qualification sits. So it's the equivalent of half an A level. So you are already seeing that with the GCE AS, sorry, get my words out. But it's not compulsory, but as I kind of alluded to, you can see that it does enhance the student's application. And in some cases, it can mean that they have a more favorable offer. So where they are presenting the A-levels, 3 A-level subjects, if they do the extended project alongside that, the certain universities may kind of lower the A-level threshold that they need to meet by 1 grade because of the value that they place on that level 3 extended diploma qualification, because of how well it prepares students and the kind of independent skills and research. Some similarities with the IB extended essay. I think there's a similar word count when it comes to the dissertation option if the students take that with the extended project qualification, but there are different ways that students can be externally assessed beyond just a dissertation piece. So that's another reason why I think there's such a variety in the way that universities can assess the qualification. But we, just like with the higher nationals and our level 3 international, BTEC level 3 internationals, we can share the syllabi for the level 3 extended project qualification and give you some more examples of how universities are evaluating it for admission.
That would also, in addition to Wade's cheat sheet, that would be a fantastic resource for our group as well, if you could do that. Yeah, so just to recap, so basically we're really looking at half an A level at the level 3, and so that's really good to know as well. And it's also really good to know that UK institutions are really taking a different perspective when looking at these, especially considering that they are really geared toward specific skill levels and specific skill sets. So that's really good to hear as well. Now going back to the transcripts. So are the Pearson Edexcel BTEC official transcripts, are they issued by Pearson or are they issued by other examining boards or colleagues?
Are you referring to the Edexcel or the BTEC transcripts? I mean, all Pearson qualifications are issued directly by Pearson, regardless of the qualification, if that's the question.
Great, definitely. And then I think that the larger part of the question was, are there other examining boards that also examine for BTEC?
No, BTEC is a brand that belongs to Pearson.
Exactly. Okay, great. So then definitely, so anything that we're looking at when it comes to BTEC qualifications and credentials are going to be issued directly by Pearson. And that is, that's really super good to know. Thank you for that. Okay.
Yeah, I think, sorry, just to kind of talk about that more widely and very quickly. So yeah, our vocational brand is BTEC and our academic brand is Edexcel, but they're both under the Pearson umbrella. So the awarding body is Pearson.
Excellent, that's great. And in thinking about the BTEC and the record of marks / transcript, sometimes one of the trickiest parts for us at the university admissions office is to determine the possible credit values for the different parts of the BTEC higher nationals. Is this something that you guys have any guidance on for us?
Yeah, it's something that we can look into. I mean, the assessment really, as there's no formal credit transfer, it does rely on the university to assess themselves what sort of credit they would grant to the student. But that's actually quite an interesting question. It's something that I think we should be looking to provide guidance on. For us, we would really give advice on the students, the best outcome for the student. So if they're studying at HND level, they would expect 2 years worth of credit. But this hasn't been the case when other countries have measured the qualification as well. And also it really depended on how a student would gain a visa. So it's something we do need to look into. And what we're trying to do with the degree finder is provide the best guidance for students in applying to institutions on how they can best help an admissions advisor assess them for entry. But in terms of providing the staff we're working with and sending students to with the best possible guidance, it's something that we can look into doing better, or we can provide you with is the outcomes of what they're learning, the specifications of what they're learning, and for you to be able to assess that yourself. I can see where this may come in because the university is graded on potentially 4 different boundaries, whereas the higher national has 3. So there's differentiation within the percentage. One thing we've looked into previously is providing percentage, but not sure what happened with that project. So at the moment it remains as past merit or distinction. But if whoever's asked that question, please do get in touch, as it's something we'd like to explore further if this is going to be an issue across the states to measure these qualifications.
Absolutely, that would be very, very helpful as well, because as you know, trying to determine possible advanced standing credit for especially the BTECs can be a little challenging, especially coming from a US-centric perspective. And so again, any guidance that Pearson would like to offer all of our members would be greatly appreciative for that. And I would also say that because you are looking more towards that the US market, looking more towards the US market, some guidance would definitely be helpful for us all. And the other last Yeah, the other last thing with that too is just speaking for myself personally, if at all you would want to review what U.S. institutions are doing with that as well when you're considering overall recommendations. I'm sure that our U.S. Institutional members and friends would love to share some of their data and what they do with those qualifications as well.
That's great, and this is precisely why we're working with you today. So working with bodies like ACRO to help with this process, and that sounds like an exciting project that we could even work on together.
Excellent, excellent. Yep, and especially for the U.S. market, we always are looking for guidance because our institutions have such wonderful autonomy to make our institutional admissibility decisions. So again, guidance would be really great on that. Thanks for asking that question, Alex. It's fabulous. Okay, so we are approaching the end of the hour, but there is one question that I would like to get to. If we could go ahead and look at the grading scales and your new level grading pattern. How does that line up with the previous pattern with the old grading system?
This for Edexcel, GCSE? Okay, so the previous system it's not the greatest colouring, but it is there. So the A star to G scale. So I think it's difficult to align a 9-point scale directly to an 8-point scale, numbers to letters as well. But what Ofqual and kind of our regulators, the UK government, have done is draw those anchor points between kind of those threshold grades. So the A grade is aligned. So the minimum threshold for the letter grade A aligns to the new grade 7. So you can see that broadly speaking, and we are seeing this since the grading scale has been launched since 2017, that broadly speaking, a similar proportion of students that would have achieved a grade A under the letter scale are achieving a grade 7. So the new grade 7 is equivalent to the existing grade A. And similarly, the minimum pass grade, the minimum threshold, typically is a C grade under the letter scale, and under the new system, that is attributed to the new grade 4. So I think the major differences are that there are now 6 pass grades, grades 9 to 4, with 9 being the top grade, whereas you had 4 pass grades from A star to C. So those typically would be the grades that where the major differences are compared to the former scale. With the lower grades, your level 1 grades, grades D to G under the letter scale, and grades 3 to 1, there isn't any major differentiation there. So that's, yeah, and then the new grade 9 sits above where that minimum threshold for the grade A star. So what we are seeing, which is the intention of the scale, is a much smaller proportion of students achieving that top new grade 9, because it is there to reward exceptional achievement under the new scale. So that's how the two scales align. So it isn't a completely one that you can kind of fit over the other, but there are those anchor points, the 9 sitting above the grade A star, the 7 sitting at the same minimum threshold as the existing grade A, and the grade 4 sitting at the minimum threshold, and in fact also the minimum grade 1 sitting at the minimum threshold for grade G as well. So that's how those two scales align. And because the letter scale hasn't completely been removed, it still exists for international GCSE exam boards and other GCSE exam boards in Northern Ireland and Wales. That's why it's so critical for you to see that association between the two, because we want to make sure that students, regardless of what grading scale they're applying to you with, are assessed fairly and accurately. But if you have any more questions about that, please do get in touch. This is really the intention of us kind of partnering up with ACRO, because we're aware that the new scale is still relatively new. It's only kind of gone in full force this year. So everything that we can do to make sure that you're comfortable with it and the students are progressing as they should be based on the new grading is exactly our intention. Thank you very much for the question.
Excellent, Basra. And just a really quick follow-up to that. So is the 9-point grading scale now, is that only going to be specific to Pearson, or do other external examining bodies also use the 9-to-1 scale?
So the 9-to-1 scale has been adopted for all Ofqual regulated exam boards in England. So that's OCR, AQA and Pearson Edexcel. Internationally, it's Pearson Edexcel International GCSEs, Oxford International AQA, which is another international GCSE exam board, and I believe that Cambridge Assessment International Education are applying the 9-to-1 grading to some of their international GCSEs as well, but not all. So you'd have to get in contact with them to find out exactly which ones, which students you could expect from which markets. But again, as you can see, it's not completely universal, but there are enough exam boards that are adopting the 9-to-1 grading. In fact, the majority of the GCSEs and international GCSEs that you'll be seeing from going forward will be under 9-to-1.
Excellent. That's really, really good to know that we will be seeing the 9-to-1 scale from not only from Pearson, but also perhaps from the other examining boards as well. So it should be something that we want to become fairly familiar with when we are starting to review these qualifications. Excellent. Well, thank you all so much. And thank you, Annabelle, Wade, and Basra for being here with us. And thank you all for joining us today. We are just at the top of the hour. And with that, I would like to say, again, thank you to everyone. And this is, again, as mentioned, the first of a 2-part webinar series on these BTEC credentials. And so we look forward to seeing you all at our next BTEC Pearson webinar. And also, we look forward to seeing you at other ACRO events. We have our annual meeting coming up at the end of this month in New Orleans, and we hope to see all of you there. And with that, thank you all so much. And please feel free to reach out to all of our presenters today for follow-up information and questions. Again, thank you all so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.